Alrighty, guys, Andrew Boltbros here. Hey, I wanted to do a real quick video going into week 3. There's not been a whole lot of news, largely because of these injuries and a few other things. It's been really quiet. In fact, me and my brothers were going back and forth, going, where the hell's all this news coming from? What's going on with Pipkins? What's going on with Herbert? What's happening? So I just want to do a real quick roundup of just the news as it stands today, the 20th. We are going to do an episode with a content creator tomorrow regarding our week 3 matchup with the Jags. We're going to get deeper. We should have a better understanding on the injuries and the days moving forward. But let's get into the information that I think is interesting and relevant for today, 9/20. Let's get into it. All right, guys, I want to talk a little bit about some of the news that has been circulating around the league, around the Chargers specifically, and where it matters, where it doesn't matter. But I think these 3 articles are kind of the only articles that I found remotely interesting today. So it's kind of a lot of people keep talking about the Chargers should are getting Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know that I really sit back and I think this is a really good idea. I would say this would make sense if Keenan Allen's injury or Mike Williams' injury, someone's injury in our wide receiver core gets a little bit more serious moving forward. No, I'm really curious to see how Keenan Allen's injury is progressing. As I understand it, he probably could have played against the Chiefs. I just think he was held out really more for precautionary reasons. But you got Parham, we got to see the other folks out there as well too. But this is interesting. You guys think about this. I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of Odell Beckham. I think he's okay. But again, think about this, right? The article did bring up a couple of interesting points, right? A lot of people think Josh Palmer was going to have a breakout season. Right now, 2 games, guys. Let's keep this very clear. In 2 games, he hasn't done a whole lot. Jalen Guyton has been completely MIA this year, which we all know. So I guess it kind of makes sense. My take on this is it probably would make sense at some point mid-season if some injuries start piling up and there is some sort of major issue. Again, Odell Beckham did tear his ACL in the Super Bowl. As I understand it, he's not even ready to go now. Again, he's not signed. We'll see what happens with him. So I don't know. Something to discuss. I don't know that I'm super excited about this, but this is something that we definitely yesterday, and I definitely wanted to kind of bring this to your attention. So I want to hear your thoughts. My thought is major emergency blanket if something really does happen. Now, this one's a little interesting too, and I almost hesitate to throw this out there, but a lot of people are talking about should the Chargers start Chase Daniel, and there's some arguments both ways, guys. I will say this: our defense is playing very well. Our defense is playing very well, and giving another week to Justin Herbert can make some sense. And that's ultimately what this article really is discussing. Look, Chase Daniel's good, not great. But my biggest concern there is that our running game has been non-existent up to this point. And I feel like if our running game was doing very well, we would just do some very short passes, a lot of running game type things, screens. I just wish we were playing a little bit better to make that happen. Having said that, even a hurt Justin Herbert is way better than a very healthy Chase Daniel at any given moment of any day of any given existence in life at this point. So I don't know. I tend to look at this and go, does it really make sense? I don't know. Look, in my opinion is Herbert would have to be extremely hurt for this to be something. I even listed in the injury report on the Chargers website at this point. He's listed day to day. So my feeling is that Herbert will most likely start against the Jags. But again, it's something to keep in mind. But it's really going to be a comfort level for Justin Herbert. So what are your thoughts? Odell Beckham Jr., Chase Daniel, what are your thoughts about them starting with the Jaguars? And again, we're going to be talking about this again tomorrow. We're going live tomorrow evening. So definitely be ready for that. This last article I thought was pretty interesting. Came out yesterday. There's a lot of good things that we can talk about with the Chargers this season so far. And one of the things that I really do is, this article is very good. So I want to sit on this for the next few minutes and then I'll wrap up. It's great to see Khalil Mack doing so well. And I think it's Khalil Mack is back. Return of the Mack. Bottom line, he played amazing against the Raiders. He actually did very well against the Chiefs as well, too. Again, Mack is second in the league with 3.5 sacks. He could have easily had double this amount of sacks in the first game alone. Micah Parsons, the only one that's tied with him on the Cowboys. But it's really nice to see them do well. Drew Tranquil's blitzing well. Kyle Van Noy's doing very well. Bosa's being Bosa. So there's a lot of really good things happening. And again, with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, it makes it very difficult for any actual team to really game plan against the Chargers because you got to double team one of them, and it's almost impossible to really make that happen. Now, so that's a good thing to see, right? I'm excited to see that. We're doing very well. Another positive thing is we are improving our run defense. And a lot of people are also criticizing a lot of our folks like our Sebastian Joseph Day, our Austin Johnsons, our Morgan Fox, a.k.a. Megan Fox. and saying, well, their stats aren't that great, yada, yada. Well, you got to understand something. The nice thing about the run defense is it really does allow time for Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack to get in the backfield and cause disruptions. The whole point is they're collapsing the pocket and closing lanes so they cannot run the ball. We are extremely better than we were last year, guys. I know stats don't really show you that. You're going to sit back and say, well, yada, yada. We didn't get a lot of sacks. Sebastian Jones not going to let a sacks. Austin Johnson's not going to get a lot of sacks. Morgan Fox, yeah, he's a little bit better. Tillery is still the speed bump. He's not great. Look, I really like what Staley said. I thought that they all played tough during the game. Bosa was doing very well. Khalil Mack is very good against a run. Sebastian Joseph Day is very good against a run. Those are run stop specialists. That's the whole point. And again, the whole point is they do a lot of little things very well to stop the run. And that's the whole point of Brandon Staley's defense, right? A lot of unsung heroes. That's a way of describing it, right? Especially Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson and the folks on the defensive line. They're really not going to get a lot of recognition, but they do a lot of things that are very important to the defense. And again, if you, in the NFL, if you can make the other team one-sided, it completely changes what they can and cannot do offensively against our team. Right? And so that's a really good thing. So at any rate, Bosa's looking really good. We're trending the right direction. And again, this is huge, guys. Everyone knew that they could run over us at any given moment of any given day of any given section of any conversation. He just steamroll us every single game. And we were giving up like 150 yards a game on average. Now we're under 100 in the first two games. And I think it's going to get better and better as the season progresses as well, too. So this is good to see that we're doing very well. Right? Again, no one knew last season they could just double team Joey Bosa and you're good to go, right? Through two games. That's right. We're at 78% rushing yards per game. That is a huge improvement, guys. Huge improvement. And it's great. I think we actually rank, 12th in the league right now in yards given up in the league. And again, we played Derek Carr and also the Chiefs. And by the way, Justin Herbert had more yards passing than Patrick Mahomes in week 2. So a lot of positives we can say against that. Now, I will say this. We are going to be tested a little bit with Jacksonville. They're averaging 1.9 yards rushing per game. Again, there's something to be thinking about on this, right? But again, let's see how stout we are. And again, I'm going to be at that game with Kyle, so it should be a lot of fun. So I'm excited. This is a part that I'd already alluded to a little bit when I talked a little bit about Chase Daniel potentially starting, is that the run game is a work in progress. We really are not there at all. And it's really been interesting. And what's really unfortunate about it now too, is that again, Corey Linsley, still, we don't really have a full understanding of what his situation is right now. Trey Pipkins is another person. We don't really have a full understanding of where he's at for this next week. And again, Herbert is listed day to day, right? He has fractured rib cartilage. It is not a good situation. So again, I really wish we were in a better position with a run game than we are now. And this is going to be the big question, at least for me moving forward this week, is whether or not we really should really be focusing on, should Chase Daniel start or should Justin Herbert start? I think it's a really fine line. Now, I will say this, as the season has progressed and we are so early in the season, I hate to say this, guys, I can actually see Brandon Staley potentially sitting Justin Herbert this week. Again, I think it might be a bad choice. But the argument would be that you can really focus on the run game and do really quick throws and really make it a very simple game to manage for a Chase Daniel. I personally think that'd be a mistake because the Jags are a much improved team. And as we've already discussed here, they're already rushing fairly well. Our defense is going to be out on the field a lot. I do not want to see more injuries on the defensive side of the ball. When you have Justin Herbert, the game is just different, right? You can do more with Justin Herbert. You have more downfield threats. You have more accuracy issues. And again, the good question is again, with the day-to-day, cartilage, sure, how accurate is he going to be moving forward? Very interesting situation there. But again, I wish that our running game was in a better position right now. So there's going to be some tough decisions made, and this is going to really be the conversation for the week that really matters. Again, I do like what Brandon Staley said. It's just a work in progress with our group. It just really is. And if you understand anything about the running game, it does matter, right? Pulling, bringing people over, the whole line sliding over, and making sure gaps are sound. Those are all things that have to work in unison to be successful, right? Now, the team that looks absolutely amazing right now and is pretty much the number one team in the league is the Bills. I watched most of that game on Monday night, and holy smokes, they just absolutely were incredible. And so they're playing great, right? Their running game is not a work in progress, and they're doing very well. But my point is we still have some things that we got to figure out, right? Again, Corey Linsley, Trey Pipkins, bit of a concern. So Again, another positive, guys, and again, I don't want this to be negative. Another great positive is that our punt coverage is on point, and J.K. Scott has absolutely been fantastic. It's interesting. Every punt that I've seen, there is zero pressure on J.K. Scott, and that ball's up the air, and we are completely covering. I don't think we've even given up any yards. Net punting has averaged 42.9 yards. I'm fine with that. I would rather give up. I would rather get less yards but make sure the punt is covered. And that is huge, right? Because by the time the ball gets to the return man, he has nowhere to go. Right? He can't move the ball any further. He can't advance it, right? Which is amazing. I mean, we've only allowed 10 punt yards in 4 attempts. That is fantastic, guys. So 2.5 yard average is the 4th lowest total in the league. Guys, that is a huge improvement from last year. We were terrible at this last year, guys. Long was awful. And hell, half the time, didn't even know if he could get the ball off in time. It just took forever to kick the ball at any given moment of any given day. It's really interesting to see how that goes. And there's a lot to be said about this. It's pretty interesting also to look at this. There's 18 teams currently 1-1. And so it's going to be interesting. And really the Jaguars are in that same group. And so I would find it interesting to see how this goes against the Jags. Right? I do believe Vegas has us at 7.5 points to win this. Look, I think it's going to be a harder game than a lot of people think. I do think the Jags are a much improved team. Obviously, they have a new head coach. Trevor Lawrence is looking very good at the moment, right? He's looking much better than he has in the past. And so, look, it's going to be really interesting to see. Now, I will say this. We are front-loaded in a nice way that most of the teams that we're playing the next few games are fairly – no game in the NFL is easy, okay? You know that. But at least the next few games, we're not playing the Titans. We're not playing some of the number one teams from next season. Right now, Kansas City and all these folks in the Bills played the Titans last night. But my point is, we're playing a little easier team. Jags are easier. And so it'll be interesting to see how it really plays out moving forward. Again, with Justin's injury, that's why a lot of people are arguing might not be a bad idea to start Chase Daniel because he's going to give you quality reps. And it's a nice luxury having a good quarterback like a Chase Daniel on the bench. So it's a lot to think about. I think this week will be very interesting to see. Again, I think Brandon Staley's been fairly conservative about some of these decisions. And I get a little nervous about him sitting so many people here and there also, right? And again, with the running game struggling the way it has, I don't like seeing people getting moved in and out, right? The problem is we're having a lot of cohesive problems. And look, make no mistake about it, running game starts really with the center. And Will Clapp is not Corey Linsley. Corey Linsley is a Pro Bowl center, and he is absolutely fantastic. So I get a little nervous, that's what we might be looking at. And I don't really want to see Will Clapp out there. But at the end of the day, I understand that, look, we got to make decisions for the season, and we got to make decisions for the season that makes sense for us long term. So what are your guys' thoughts? Am I way off base? What do you think about Odell Beckham? What do you think about Chase Daniels potentially starting? What do you think about these injuries piling up? What do you think about these 5 takeaways that we just discussed today? I think there's a lot we can improve on. We've shown some success. The things that we have improved are so much better than what we were struggling with last season. Last season, we struggled with a lot, guys. We really did. So it's nice to see these improvements and trending the right direction. But I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Leave your comments down below. Again, I'm Andrew, Bolt Bros here. As always, we're here to support you guys and have these discussions. But we'll see you guys in the next one. Again, Wednesday night, we are going live. Jacksonville podcaster talking about the Jags, the upcoming game, and we'll have a spirited debate, I'm sure. As always, Andrew, Bolt Bros. See you guys in the next one.
What's up, guys? James from Bolt Bros here. Let's talk about best in the West after week 2. So it's been kind of a wild week for the AFC West in a lot of different ways. So let's just talk about the Chiefs first off. So the Chiefs played the Chargers on Thursday night, found a way to get back into the game, albeit they did get some calls that swung their way with INTs getting called back. Some seemed a little suspect and some looked very familiar that got called a pick. But for the Chargers, they were not called for a pick. So either way, Chiefs found a way. Mahomes did his magic. He found ways to make it work and found ways to get the Chiefs the win. So it definitely was not an easy game and easily could have been a multi-pick based game for Patrick Mahomes. So they beat the Chargers 27-24. So on to the next team. This channel is all about family, trust, respect, but the Raiders here didn't come through like they thought. So that game against the Cardinals was insane. Bottom line was one of the worst collapses I've ever seen in a team to when they were up 23-7 in the third and ended up ultimately giving it up in overtime. Kyler Murray took over the game, and probably the longest 2-point conversion I've ever seen in my life that lasted 20 seconds with him finding a way to be able to walk into the end zone. It was incredible to watch that happen. And basically, the Raiders ended up losing by Hunter Renfro getting hit and fumbled the ball. And I think it was Byron Murphy, that ended up getting the fumble to get the touchdown to win it in overtime. What a wild game. Josh McDaniel starts his Raider 0-2 so far. So family trust respect, guys. Broncos played the Texans. And this was an interesting one because I know this is one that the Chargers are going to be playing here soon with the Texans. And the Texans have been playing pretty hard fought games up to this point. So it's a very interesting thing to see how that team is doing. But with the Broncos, it was a very tight game, just field goal fest, dang near one touchdown the entire game. They did ultimately beat the Texans. I think it was 16-7, but it was still really a head scratcher game. Nathaniel Hackett has been making some odd moves, and it just seems like the team is not in sync offensively or on the same page when they're trying to run a play or whatnot. So, for instance, they had that fourth down where they were going to go for a field goal, which once again was a very long field goal. And the offense was on the field, and then they got told that they need to have the field goal unit out, came out, basically eventually ended up getting a penalty for delay of game. And so it's a frustrating thing to see a team just have a missynced team all around. They just cannot figure it out. They have to figure out how to be on the same page. This is second game where there's been some boneheaded moves, boneheaded choices. Team has been out of sync. Even got to the crowd where it even got to a point with the crowd jumping in and yelling out the play call, or excuse me, it got to a point with the crowd even getting involved in the game where they were yelling out the play clock slowly like it was the beginning or about to be the ball dropping for New Year's Eve, just to let the team know what's going on with the play clock. So it's really, really odd to see this. And it's crazy to see that you don't fix these things after week one and having that debacle that you had week one. Nathaniel Hackett really needs to get that team going along. And that offense seems a little sluggish. Defense doesn't seem too fine, too bad. I think the defense is going to be fine all around. But man, it's just something else with that team. And I just don't understand it. Going on to the Chargers. Play the Chiefs, which we talked about earlier, end up losing that game, held the lead all the way into the third quarter. Offense seemed stagnant once again in the third quarter, and they were even cushing quite a bit too, the ball. And there was a time I think we only had the ball maybe 45 seconds to a minute for 3 plays. And it's just something seems really off with the offense play calling in the second half of the game. Big difference in the game was Corey Linsley went out with an injury. I believe it's a knee injury. Seems fine. Seems like he'll be good for this week. Trey Pipkins also went out with an injury at right tackle. I believe it's an ankle injury. He seems okay. But the biggest injury was to Justin Herbert, it wasn't a rib fracture. They got x-rays. Then he ended up getting another look on it too. He had a fractured rib cartilage. Basically, it sounds like it's more just a pain management situation at this time. But it did affect the game. There was a point to where it seemed like Justin Herbert couldn't even throw the ball. He couldn't even run to get a first down for 1 yard, which he had a full wide open ability to run to get the first down. And then the next play, he throws an absolute laser DeAndre Carter for about 40 plus yards and then ends up getting a touchdown in the end of that drive. Definitely gutted out. Definitely a lot of respect for Justin Herbert around the league and a lot of fans out there. So who's really the best in the West after 2 games? With the Raiders, they had a win. They were even celebrating in the crowd with popping champagne bottles and such. Not good. Ended up losing in overtime. A little premature on that celebration, guy. But Broncos seem to be a mess more on game management, how to manage time, how to manage timeouts, how to manage the team in general. So Chiefs obviously beat the Chargers. Chargers definitely had the ability to win that one, ended up losing it, but the Chiefs ended up gutting it out. So if I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to say Raiders at the bottom, TR. Broncos third, just because they have a lot of mismanagement, don't seem very in sync as a team. Chargers 2, which then leaves the Chiefs 1. So great week 2. Very fun to be able to watch a lot of these games. And extremely exciting. Looking forward to week 3, guys. Let's go.